What's up, Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Way of Wade All City 12 Encore. And contrary to a lot of other V2s or lows you see, like the next, iteration of the same shoe, these things are quite a bit different than the All City 12s, and mostly in, the positive direction. So let's get into them. And thanks to Way of Wade for sending me a pair of these over to check out. However, as always, this video is not sponsored. All opinions, good, bad, and indifferent, all my own. Now, starting off in the uppers, Way of Wade did something in these that I've been wishing so many companies would do since Rafa Nadal started getting completely custom shoes made by Nike, and that is they have an extra long tongue. If you look at Rafa Nadal's PE shoes, the ones that are by no means for sale anywhere, his tongue is actually like 1.5 times as long as most others on the shoes. And that is fantastic because it gives you such a better lockdown. I know it doesn't seem like it would do anything, but it does. It also gives you such a better feel of security in the shoe. Now, this one's got this bubble padding like we're used to seeing with a lot of shoes. And then as you go further into the tongue, it is just a single layer of padding. And then the gusset on it is very, very high. And then it's got pores gridded throughout the entire medial and lateral side of that gusset. Number one, it makes it a little more malleable. Number two, aids in breathability. Now, as you go more superficial from that tongue, you'll see that these are all kind of external or outrigger lace eyelets. They do allow the laces to lay a lot more flat on your foot. And so that really does aid in preventing lace irritation. The one thing I did notice is if I didn't get the laces, like that last lace eyelet onto the bubble padding, that's when I could get a little bit of irritation. But if I just kind of messed with it a little bit, really none at all. The one thing I will say about the laces is because it's going through this, I'm not sure if this is real leather or fake leather, but since it is going through a more substantial material in a more traditional eyelet, most distal, and then it's kind of doing, the long, the circuitous route into the first, outrigger lace eyelet, the lace line is a little bit stiff. So when you first get them out of the box, you're going to want to mess that a little bit, get it dialed in. Because like I said, it is a little bit stiff the first time. Once you break them in, it's really no problem, but just watch out for that. There is no runner's knot in these. However, the lockdown on these really is fantastic. I didn't really have any heel slippage off the jump. I mean, very, very mild at first. And then once they were broken in, really not much at all. And you would think that with this giant external outrigger heel counter that you would have a lot. However, that outrigger heel counter is mostly just boom foam, right? That is just a very, small piece of TPU that goes all the way around. Now you do get also a pretty thin internal heel counter, but basically this heel counter just relies on basically surface area. I did not notice any instability from it. Honestly, I actually thought it was actually pretty darn stable in terms of side-to-side containment on this, keeping the rear foot stable. But like I said, it's because there's just so much of that material. It just spans such a large area. So if it were smaller, it really wouldn't do anything. And I kind of thought it was going to make the shoe really heavy when I saw it online. But once you take it out of the box, it's pretty light material. So you'll see in the midsole teardown, these are not heavy shoes by any means. However, the craziest part of these uppers is their breathability. You look at this thing on the breathability test, they only heated up 97.7 degrees. And that is with, leather backing on the top and then 2 layers, one textile weave, which is matted down, right? It's pretty thick. And then underneath of that is a padded net underneath of it that goes into the netted strobel. But it's in the midfoot where you get this TPU meshing, this honeycombing, where heat was just blowing out like crazy. When I was doing my heat gun on, I could just tell hot air was just blowing out like crazy. And it was the same thing on the breathability mapping, just fog blowing out of the sides of the shoe, as well as the sides of the tongue where that gritting is of those macro channels of, for air circulation. So honestly, even though the uppers have containment in spades, these things are fantastic in terms of containment. That's just because you get rubber coming up over the midsole, which we'll talk about in the midsole teardown, as well as in the performance, which these, a comparison to another new shoe where these got right where the other ones did not. But for all you get in the uppers on these in terms of containment, number one, they're not heavy. And number two, they breathe like crazy. But the only thing in the uppers that did not match kind of like the super premium build of the rest of it was in the upper durability test, 10-second tie grit sandpaper. I mean, the burr just works right through this backing layer up here, this leather backing layer. And so, yeah, I mean, number one, it is so thick. So it's still going to do a decent job, right? I mean, it's still going to protect, it's still going to resist wear, but it's going to look weird, right? You're going to scuff it up, plus you got exposed foam. So in terms of a dragger or slider on outdoor courts, yeah, you're going to start to tear these up. On an indoor court, it's really not going to make a difference. And if you're someone that doesn't drag or slide on outdoor courts, that's going to be a different story. We'll talk about that in the outsole section. But getting into the midsole teardown, actually, quite a departure from the All City 12s. First of all, you do get a full bed of boom foam, which is nice, but then you do get the bottom loaded shank versus some of the top loaded shanks we've seen from Way of Wade. Now this one does cross from the rear foot into the midfoot, so it is a little bit longer. One thing I noticed is this is a pretty wide, big shank, and because it is bottom loaded, the shoe does stay very stable, but because it's boom foam on top, you still get a lot of pop out of these things. Because if you look at these things on the bounce height test, 43 centimeters in the rear foot, 42 in the forefoot. I mean, like most Way of Wade shoes, these things are bouncing to the moon. That is no different on these, on foot versus others, even without the top loaded shank. And in these ones, like I say, you get a little bit more feelings of stability, if that was at all possible from the All City line to even feel more stability from them. I will say the All City 12s did not feel as kind of rugged on the ground as the 11s did and the 11 V2s. The 12 Encore is much more reminiscent of the 11s, which I personally liked. I personally like the 11s more than the 12s. I thought they were, the 12s I thought were trying to be more of a speedy, kind of streamlined focus shoe, kind of tell in the shape of them. Whereas the 11s kind of like they just were who they were, right? They were a super aggressive side to side, kind of containing shoe. The 12 Encores, I think, kind of harken back to that, which I personally like a little bit more. Now, where that is no more evident is in the outside of the midsole, where as you can see, the rubber from the tread comes up over as a containing element. Now that is something we have seen in the Jordan 39. And in that one, it's not enough to do anything. Whereas in these ones, because all they did was throw a shank in them, that shank plus the containing element of the rubber, number one, contains the boom foam, which is really nice, especially in the forefoot. If you're bouncing off of it over and over and over again, that rubber casing in the forefoot is going to help keep that foam more lively over a longer period of time. But then the shank on the bottom of the shoe resists those ground reactive forces. That's what kind of keeps your foot feeling fresh and the foam performing optimally over time. So as you can see, yes, the rubber casing over thermoplastics, it's great. I think I even said in the Jordan 39 video, I mean, that idea is fine. That's awesome. It's just you got to augment it, right? There still has to be something on the bottom of the shoe or just like something in the midsole, right? Top loaded or bottom loaded shank. And in these ones, that combined with the bottom loaded shank, like I said in the Jordan 39 video, if it just had a shank in there, it has more laterally stable, it would be one of the better shoes out there. And here in the All City 12, it's pretty much, a lot of similar playing characteristics of the 39s. Super buttery, really bouncy, really comfortable, but this one's got the performance. But wrapping around that casement into the outsole tread, as you can see, this is much more of a flat tread profile shoe, a lot different than the All City 12. You're seeing like chunkier tread patterns. This one basically is just kind of like a hodgepodge of shapes. It kind of radiates out, kind of like a starburst pattern in the rear foot and some triangles going up into the forefoot. Basically, this rubber, it's a lot like the JB2, like the leaning Gamma. As long as the shapes on it are going in different directions in different parts of the shoe so you can grab traction in multiple areas, honestly, this compound of rubber doesn't matter because it's the compound of rubber that produces all the grip and stability. Now, if you look at this thing on the grip test ramp, it does not slip until 44 degrees. You look at it on the viewing box, you can see it's really flat tread, right? There's not a lot of rubber movement there. It, like I said, relies on the compound of rubber. Durometer of these things is only 11.5. It's softer rubber. But if you look at it on the outsole durability test, 10-second size grit sandpaper, not even a millimeter of damage, a lot like JB2, a lot like the leaning Gamma. This new rubber science is just crazy, especially on indoor courts. Whereas I've seen people getting, the JB2s, the Gammas, other shoes with this kind of rubber science. And, even after a few months down the road, there's still no wear on it. It's just absolutely crazy what they've been able to do with softer rubber compounds. Now, on an outdoor court, if it's a smooth outdoor court and you don't drag or slide a lot, I think it's okay, right? If you have more kind of like dancing footwork. However, you start sliding, putting a lot of friction heat into these, they're gonna do okay for a while, but once you kind of start wearing down that interface, you might start to get, you're gonna lose the best parts of these shoes. So I would say if you're, like I said, I'd say if you're playing outdoor pickleball and you're playing, like I said, you're not playing a super high friction type game, right? A little more dancing footwork, light footwork, I think then they're fine. But I think these do their best work on indoor courts for both basketball and I'd say right now, even though there's been a ton of really good shoes for indoor pickleball, these definitely take the cake for top right now, even though I just did a top 5 video. these definitely have usurped all of those for sure. And if you look at the speed ratio of the All City 12 Encores, coming in at 3.12, shank score of 0.2 brings these up to a 3.32. Yeah, I think that's where they belong. These things are really lightning quick, but they're also very quick in a contained area, right? And there's really no better example of that than my court that I have now, which is a very contained area. I noticed when I was at the community center though with these things, getting up and down the court was so easy in these things because it's full bed of boom foam, it's a longer shank. I mean, these things are gonna haul, plus they're not a super heavy shoe either, but I found that the side-to-side containment, the side-to-side speed, I should say, the side-to-side stopping power, especially on indoor court, and the up and down speed on these, really unrivaled right now. And getting into the fit of the Encores, although they are a little bit more forgiving than the 12s, they still require a little bit of break-in. They only have a 10-degree inflare, which I like a little bit more forgiving. And they come in at a 28.7 centimeter length, a 9.6 centimeter metatarsal width, a 10.4 centimeter toe box width, and a toe box taper of 28 degrees. What I just noticed is because the forefoot, where basically the stitching is on them, that's what was a little bit more unforgiving. The rest of the shoe expanded pretty well. It's just the forefoot of them, like I said, there's just a lot of material in there. I'd say a narrow medium foot, you can go true to size on these. I'd say if you're a very short-toed, narrow foot, you can go down a half size to get the weight reduction there, a little more of a glove-like fit. Medium foot, like I said, go true to size. A 2E, I think you can break these in true to size. They might take an hour or two to break in, but you can go up 1/2 size in these. You start going up more and more, you start losing that glove-like fit, and then that's where the lack of a runner's knot might come into some heel slippage. A 4E, yeah, I'd at least be going up 1/2 size. And I think it depends on how long your toes are, right? You have long toes. I think that, a longer foot, then you can go up 1 size. Shorter, I think I'd try to break them in 1/2 size. If you have a bunion or a tailor's bunion, you better be going up a size. Make sure you're kind of the right profile for them, just because that's right where the stitching is. Now, in terms of the snake bitten foot, and for people that keep asking what a snake bitten foot is, it's just a painful foot and ankle, right? Any lumps, bumps, bruises, any pain you might have, injuries, things like that, chronic conditions. Now, in terms of heel pain, arch pain, ball of foot pain, tendonitis, shin splints, knee, hip, back, any type of shock-induced injuries, once again, a full bed of boom foam plus a longer shank, Shocker is going to do really well. So really for anything, especially ankle sprainers that want a little bit of a lighter shoe, but also has all the trappings of a more maximalist shoe, these are absolutely fantastic. Not much more to say on these other than, even without an orthotic, they're fantastic. But if you can fit a low profile orthotic in there, they will accept that. The bulkier and bulkier of an orthotic you get, that's where that lack of a runner's knot is going to start to probably introduce a little bit of heel slippage. So if you are going to do an orthotic, make sure it's a little bit more low profile. And getting into the performance of the Encores, like I said, they were everything I kind of wanted the Jordan 39s to be. Super speedy, really low to the ground feeling, even though you got this massive slab of boom foam in there. Just very side-to-side stable, but just speedy, quick-moving shoe. Very, like I said, very much like the All City 11s. And that's what I really like to see. The flange on these things is super sharp, right? You get that really crazy pivoting power on these. Going up for layup after layup after layup was just super easy. And the floor that I have here, although it feels good because I put a really good underlayment down, right? Like that's where I spent the money, was the underlayment. It is very deadened, right? You don't get a lot out of this floor. And even with that, these were just absolutely phenomenal. And I'm still, I haven't done the wet Swiffer on this floor yet to get rid of all the sawdust and everything. I'll leave the video linked up above where I build the whole studio. You can check it out if you want. But I'm still getting rid of the sawdust and I haven't had time to do the wet Swiffer. Even with some of the sawdust still on there, these things were gripping fine. I mean, like every other shoe, if I hit a patch, I'd get a little bit of give, even with the new Freak 6s that had really good grip profile. Even those would kind of slide out a little bit. These just, nothing was really getting to these. And in some of the shoes that have this really tacky rubber, you can almost feel like, if you're a really heavy dude like me or really tall, almost like the shoe is stopping and your body keeps going. You kind of have to adjust your footwork to it. Whereas in these, they're so darn stable. You really don't have to worry about that sensation. These ones, I know I talked about that in the Leaning Gamma. And I think in the Ushuaï 18, just kind of learning how the shoe wants to be used. Whereas in these, like I said before, for either basketball or pickleball, especially indoor pickleball, honestly, they really marry the best of of a more maximalist shoe as well as a more kind of shifty, more guard-focused shoe where you can kind of get yourself out of really hairy situations, even though if you're backed into a corner or if you've got open court, right, on a fast break, they still do just as well. So in terms of an all-around best performer on hardwood, really these things, like I said, really have taken the cake. They just surprised how different they were from the 12s, especially in the performance department, how they felt underfoot. So I'd hear your thoughts in the comments down below, especially if you've gotten the 12s and are looking to go to the Encores, or if you're someone that's kind of more of an All City 11 holdout and looking to go to the Encores. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you do want to see the older sibling to the All City 12 Encore going to the knife, the Way of Wade 11, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you soon with the Sneakerverse.